How is bodyweight strength training different for adults compared to children?
Good question. First seminar I ever did for adults. I'm a national team coach. And what I learned is it really skewed my expectations of what was normal, because that was my world. That was who I was surrounded by. They weren't exceptional. They just were, right? These are the expectations. I ask them to do things and they can perform at this level. So I run an event for adults, first GB seminar on their schedule for the day. And I'm going to take them through just a gentle warm up, nothing hard, nothing demanding. I've got 15 minutes on the schedule, 10 minutes, 15 if we're dragging. I can't get them to focus or not paying attention, whatever. And it took an hour and a half for a nothing warm up. They were wrecked from it. They were wrecked. They were exhausted, sweat everywhere, body strewn all over the floor. I remember turning to my staff and I go, what do I do now? They failed warm up. We have to adjust all the rest of the 3 days on the fly because their level of prep and capacity was so much lower than I expected.
What was the warm-up out of interest? What did that involve?
Nothing. There was no plyometrics in it. There was no advanced mobility. There would have been basic positions, front, left, middle, pancake, shoulder extension, which we know now they didn't have. My guys, we would do our wrist prep series. A lot of the things we would do weren't considered strength. They were considered warm-up. So an example would be, we're going to do the wrist series with my wrist push-up series that everyone now thinks, we've known about this stuff since the beginning of time, but it wasn't. It was my series. But, it's maybe 50 different push-ups, different variations. It should take my athletes a couple of minutes to get through it. Just bang, 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 letting them know if you can't handle 50 push-ups, even though these are difficult, wrist push-ups, if you can't handle that an iron cross is out of the question, or, part of their warm-up was on a 7-meter rope, 3 rope climbs in a row, climb the rope, 3 laps in a row without stopping, get in the back of the line. We run through it 3 times. That was warm-up for us. And that's just checking the pressure in the tires. How's the oil today? How do I feel? Okay. After that kind of level of work, now we can actually go and start training. So out of all my friends who are, Olympians and world championship coaches and all that stuff, I was unusual in that they just wanted to work with the best. That's all they wanted to do. And I'd get fussed at all the time for working with people who weren't just my national team athletes. The Chinese more quiet. My friends who were Rush were just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, well, I like to work with people who give me everything they have. They may not be very good, but I really enjoy that. I've thrown Olympians out of the gym because they weren't working hard enough. And people around me were, they're freaking out. They're like, nationals is next week. I don't give a damn. This lack of effort is unacceptable. I'm not doing it. But, they would have said, well, absolutely, we'll do it, blah, 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 blah. No. So I had this young man named Tim who's overweight, and he comes to a GB seminar, which is sculpted bodies everywhere, muscle everywhere, studs, male, female. They're very athletic. And here's Tim, pudgy, overweight, but he's just busting his butt. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I had him talk to everyone, and the story was he had lost 100 pounds, but he couldn't train. So just our mobility work had been his workout. That was all he could do, and he used that to lose 100 pounds. I still, to this day, that's been, 15 years ago, 12 years ago. I just love the dedication, because think how hard it is for someone who's in normal shape to do my material. And here's this guy that, putting on his socks in the morning wears him out. And he's consistent and he's working hard. And it's like, guys, this is what I love right here, because I've been fortunate enough to, I'm sure you have too, I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of different spheres So, we've had some billionaires we worked with, some best-selling authors, some, the normal, special operations stuff. What they have in common is they all do their best. Whatever it is they're best at. It's like a common language. I'm sure there's guys out there who don't operate that way, but I haven't met them, in those spheres. And so when I see someone who they'll give me their best, the quality may not be good, but they're giving me everything. Okay, in this one area, since they've learned that, now we can push that out into other areas.
And that's refreshing for people to hear that are listening to this, because they'll see a champion, world-class Olympian in gymnastics, and they see what's required to achieve that level. It's nice to know that if we embody that work ethic, regardless of our point, we'll go on to achieve great things. And that's a universal mindset of people that do make progress.
You might. So Alan, my last athlete, almost made the Olympic team for Tokyo. He was alternate. So we were just a bit short. For those who haven't interacted with world-class athletes, they're not stronger. They're not faster. They're not just more coordinated in a way that you kind of imagine or can grasp. They're so much further ahead physically that they're almost from a different planet. That there's that very top group, people who have tried to roll on the mat with Olympic judo players. It's just like they tried to wrestle with a tornado, and one guy, he didn't back off enough and he came out with a broken collarbone. And the other guy was trying to be easy, but the one guy had bit off more than he could chew, right? He was on the mat with the wrong guy. And so even with that level of talent for Alan, it still took me 12 years and over 16,000 hours of training. As picky as I am and as demanding as I am, it took that, even though he had this tremendous level of talent, right? It still took me thousands and thousands of hours to get him to where I needed him to be. I also had other athletes that worked just as hard as Alan, weren't on national team and didn't win nationals and didn't make a world team and didn't make an Olympic team, but they did a decade of training with me. They kind of think, well, that 10,000 hour rule. If I do everything I should do, I'm going to achieve world-class performance. And the answer is maybe, if the potential, so the question is it nurture or it's nature? And it's both. I can't develop what's not there, but we can try to maximize what you have. That may be a lot more than you expect, right? It might be a lot more than you expect. It may be disappointing, but there's nothing you can do about it either way. This is the hand of cards you've been dealt in life. You don't get to fold and say, well, I'll take another hand.
Yeah.
Right? This is what you got. Do the best with it. And if you're one of the fortunate few, you'll crank. But, if not, I ran my entire gym on best effort. That was everything for us, So who gave me best effort? Who was living up to their potential? They were recognized for that. And guys, even if Alan won nationals, but it wasn't everything that he could have done, right? And I would line, the reason it matters, I would line all my athletes up according to how they had performed at their competitions. But the scores didn't matter and the placings didn't matter. It was all about what were you personally capable of, best effort on that routine, plus a stuck landing, right? And so I'd get little guys who barely could walk in a straight line, and I'd put them in the front of the line, right? But the real world, and the listeners are going to know, your boss doesn't care if you did your best, if you failed and the company lost a lot of money. He doesn't care. He can't afford to care, right? Because he has expenses, right? He's got overhead. There's paychecks to go out. He needs you to be a stud, and he needs you to win. He needs you to produce. But in the gym, and I let my athletes know this, I can artificially control this for right now. For now, you giving me your best is good enough. While letting them know outside in the real world, not only are they not going to care, they can't afford to care. And so, right now we're gonna train you. So one of my athletes who physically couldn't hang with Alan, but dorky little kid when he was little, this huge pair of ears. I took 3 years teaching him a cartwheel.
Wow.
I used to tease Ian all the time. It's like, dude, I could have taught a little kid in a wheelchair a cartwheel faster than you've learned this. This is kind of silly, dude. But he just gave me a big goofy smile and he'd jump back in. But he just would never stop. And then every year I would think he was maxed out and he would still improve. Right when I thought he couldn't do any more. Now he'd have to work twice as hard as everyone else. And he's a pilot in the Air Force now. He's a major, right? A little guy who wasn't a good student, wasn't a good athlete initially, right? But just kept his nose to the grindstone. And so, will you see someone without massive talent on an Olympic team? You won't. But that's 5 guys out of 330 million.
Given the genetics are elite to start with, and it's coupled with that mindset of pushing yourself hard consistently, in addition to that, your method focuses heavily on physical preparation. Why is this the case?
100%. It was my experiences in training. So remember, national team coach, Olympic Training Center, sports scientist, in and out constantly, pressure plates, all the sensors, athletes wired up all the time. And we found out that even something as simple as a round off back handspring backflip, that punch into the backflip was 14 times body weight.
Wow.
Think about the structural adaptation. So tendons and ligaments strengthen through extremely high loads for a microfraction of a second. That's how they're conditioned. For athletic purposes, I can get stronger through isometric pause, controlling an eccentric, but that's really a fairly low ceiling for that. But and notice it's starting to come around now where the buzzword right now is the plyometrics. All right, we're going to do plyometrics, but it's really they're all just doing low end plyometrics. They're doing jumps. There's very little rebound work. There's very little straight leg work. There's 0 lock arm work. Years ago, I was invited by Paula Quinn to go to their headquarters in Rhode Island, I believe it was, to do a dynamic strength seminar. So basically, upper body plyometrics. Big, strong guys, monsters everywhere, dwarfed me. And so we go, and I spend the whole day doing physical prep. Just get them ready. Don't want anyone to get hurt. Active mobility, how are they? And by then it was time to just do what I would do with a 5-year-old. And we start them with, imagine a push-up position with locked elbows and just bouncing up and down in place. No bending the knees, no bending the elbows, no sagging the stomach. Sheer repulsion strength, rebound strength through the shoulder girdle. None of them. They were glued to the floor, and I hadn't trained in forever. And I was like, guys, this is, I brought athletes with me. And they're, well, these guys are athletes. I said, guys, I'm a fossil. And I got down and, and showed them. So this is easy stuff, guys. But they had never been exposed to it. And that's kind of where the athleticism comes from.
What are the standards you're looking for from a physical prep perspective, like numbers and stuff like that?
Well, back in the day, Greg Glassman, I was the gymnastics guy for CrossFit. They wanted people to go into kipping pull-ups. But, I said, Greg, the kipping pull-ups are actually kind of the final step, if you will. And you guys are doing it first. You're doing it first. And he's, they get excited. And they've never done a pull-up, and I can come in and have them start with their chin over the bar and fall down and bounce back up, and they're excited. I was like, yeah, okay, but I'm not strong enough to do one, and I don't think you realize you're exposing them to multiple times body weight at the bottom of that bounce. And they weren't strong enough to do 1 times body weight, so now you're going 2 times body weight, and they're not just going to hit the bottom and come straight up. They're going to hit the bottom and go through a degree of flexion that they're not flexible enough to do. So you've loaded them too hard. You've exceeded their range of motion, They didn't break right now, but they're going to. And then I think usually what happened is when after 2 or 3 months of doing CrossFit, we started seeing a lot of slap tears in adult population. Should never happen. What the hell are they getting slap tears for? And oh my gosh, they were, I get it. The CrossFitters, it's their baby, and telling them that this particular step is not a good idea is like telling a mama that her child's ugly. They take it personally, or they just, jumped on the bandwagon to attack me en masse. But interestingly, now over the years, that's morphed to, you need to be able to do 5 pull-ups before you go into kipping work. But when I told them that, oh my gosh, they were not having anything. They did not want to hear it. So, some pull-ups, some dips, in the initial days, I would have said, our rope climbs, but I realized that for your general market, that was excessive. So, your 5 pull-ups. We started with the body weight row variations. Just wanted to take time, build the grip strength. So what we found with adults is they're not very active except for their workout, compared to someone who's young, who's, you're running around all day, you're riding your bike, you're running here, you're going to your friend's house, you're walking to school, you're busy and moving all day. And then you hit, 8th grade, 9th grade, and you start doing athletic training at school. And everyone thinks it was the athletic training alone that led to their increase in athleticism. And they don't realize, because it's so ubiquitous, they move me all the time. It's like a fish in water. You can't describe to a fish that you're surrounded by water 24/7, and fish goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. So they're in this tremendous everyday matrix of constant movement. And then we get adults, and there's not that constant movement anymore. And their body now is trying, especially connective tissue, is trying to survive on an hour a day. And it's not meant to be the case. I had, orthopedic surgeons who would come up, everyone's knees, are just they start breaking down at 35. Now it's just part of life. Your knees are going to go. And it's, well, yes and no. I said, the reason they're breaking down at 35 is they graduated college at 22. And they're fairly active and they're running around. And then, mid-20s, late 20s, they're working. Okay, well, that cuts into the time they can do stuff. And they're getting tired. And then they're going to meet someone. All right, some more free time is gone. They're going to hit 30. He said by the time they're 35, except for being in the gym, they're not doing much. And everything they're doing, there's no joint prep, right? There's nothing. So the purpose of joint prep is to build strength throughout range of motion. And that's all mobility is. Flexibility is going to be that passive range of motion. And mobility is going to be how much strength, what percentage of that range of motion can I demonstrate strength through, and at what level of strength. That's all mobility is. And I see all kinds of silly and foolish, definitions of what mobility is and what it isn't. And I actually don't know what the heck they're trying to do other than kind of stand out from the crowd. They're just overly compensating, or trying to make it overly complex, I saw Daniel do this cool movement, but I can't say what Daniel said because I can't sell that as a product. So I'm going to take what Daniel said, I'm going to file off the serial numbers, give it a coat of paint, and this is new unicorn blood workout that made me the stud that fell down from the sky. She'd be like, well, and so there's a lot of needless confusion.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I wish we had there's enough complexity in exercise to begin with. Throwing in different terms for the same thing is really confusing. But at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same fight. It's just unfortunate that we get separated financially to, stand out above other people, create a unique system.
But I really don't like some aspects of the fitness industry compared to the clarity of national team. So national team, you were the best if you won. You were national champion, you were the best. You didn't have to say you were the best. You didn't have to have a marketing campaign against all the competitors trying to show you were the best. Everyone
Whereas
knew.
if your information is correct or best practice, it doesn't mean you win.
That's right.
One thing you've promoted, which is at a stark contrast and at odds to the fitness industry, is this steady state training cycle where you keep the training load the same. We're talking the exact same sets, reps, hold times, progressions for an 8 to 12 week phase. Why is this something that you recommend?
I once did it for a year.
See, that would blow some people's minds because it's at odds with progressive overload, with weights. Why is it different for bodyweight movements?
I don't think it applies just to body weight. I was just reading about a really famous Japanese power lifter, Hideaki Inaba, 114 pounder. He didn't start lifting until he was 33. He won 27 world championship medals, competed all the way up to 60. His weights didn't drop, but he only did powerlifting for 2 3-month blocks a year. All of this every year. He'd do world championships in November. Then he would take December, January, and February completely off. Didn't do anything. Said he didn't touch a barbell. Then he would start lifting in March and April, compete at Japanese nationals in May. Of course, he's not 100%. He's just getting back in. Then after that, he would do keep lifting, but he would increase the reps, and he would, for 3 months, slide into a bodybuilding protocol. And then he would do, that would be through the summer, September, October, he's getting back in his powerlifting, Worlds in November. So out of a year, he was only doing 6 months worth of powerlifting. And he had tremendous longevity. Young men, invulnerable, immortal, can't be hurt, bullets bounce off, impatient. I don't have time to take my time, but you have time to be hurt, not do anything. And so I tried to have a long talk with them, some teasing in that. And I said, guys, what happens is people start training, especially the younger guys. And I would count that all the way through the 20s, right? And I said, 2 years, maybe 3 years before they're broken enough that they can't train anymore. And if they're extra tough and they'll push through the pain, maybe 4. Because it's kind of that badge of honor, right? Push through the pain, be a man. I'm getting pictures sent all the time to me of people are proud because their hands are bloody. They've ripped all their calluses off. There's like, coach, I'm so tough. And they're broken and they're laying in puddles of sweat. And I was like, guys, there's not a world-class athlete anywhere that trains this way. I said, but look how tough I am. Look at my hands. And I said, well, yeah, it does show that you worked really hard today. But what are you going to do tomorrow? So you can't train again for a week. And there's nothing you did today by destroying yourself that's going to make up for you not being able to train for the next week. I said, you don't understand how the development works. I guess a simple way to describe it is you tried to write a novel in one day. Instead of a 365-page novel, you tried to write it in one day instead of just write a page today. And write another page tomorrow. And I understand, that in terms of it, it's not very thick, and you feel like you didn't do anything. But after a year, 365, that's a lot of progress. And so that's where the steady state cycle came from.
Important even for the average person doing bodyweight strength training, and that's something that I attribute to my longevity. I started when I was 17. I'm still healthy and progressing at 31. And in my early days, I was fortunate in 2010 to come across Gymnastics Bodies by this coach, Christopher Summer, who outlined the importance of how long it takes for tendons and connective tissue to adapt, and how there's this mismatch when you feel like you're strong on a planche, a front lever. You might be able to produce the force, do the movement, but there's a lag period with how your tendons adapt. It's measured in months as opposed to days and weeks.
100%. Very good. You were one of the few who was mature enough, right, to accept that this is reality, okay, and behave accordingly. where kind of, a lot of us when we're young, we have the tendency, I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't apply to me. We're guys, we're testosterone boys, I'm special. We get guys that they just want to do the strength, or they're yoga people and they just want to do the mobility, right? Or they're athletes and they want to do their skill part. They're going to do the plyometric and the centrifugal training, but they're lacking on strength or mobility. It could be both. And they don't realize how perfect the body is by itself before they start it. And so they're not careful in having a comprehensive plan. So things get out of balance.
I'm so glad you mentioned that piece about being well-rounded, because that's something I'm preaching as hard as I possibly can at Fitness FAQs.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It's not just one domain. It's not just the body weight strength. It's not just the lifting weights. It's not just the flexibility, mobility, range of motion stuff. It's everything. It's how the components come together to make your body well-rounded. And it's almost as if people need a certain level of restraint. It's like reverse ego. All of us want to train hard, but it's the ability to be like, play the long game. I need to do these dinky exercises for my shoulder and isolate these different muscle groups so I can have a well-balanced body.
I love how you said that. It's 100% right. It's quite common for athletes to get very depressed after an Olympics, mainly because they weren't enjoying what they were doing. They thought Olympics was going to be this penultimate moment in their life. It was going to change their life. They were going to be somehow different walking out of the arena than walking into the arena. And it's not the case. If you're an idiot walking in, you're an idiot walking out. You're a nice person walking in, you are walking out. At the end of the day, it's still an athletic contest. Let's not get it twisted and make it more than it is. And so the ones that I've seen with kind of the healthiest approaches, enjoy the journey. Don't go from goal to goal to goal to goal, because it's really unsatisfying. So what happens when you get the goal? Well, now what do you do? Well, I need a new goal. Instead of, why do you train? I like training.
Yeah, it seems the value from that steady state training is especially important for people playing sports that want to also condition with the gymnastic strength, or, people that are doing hybrid
not even
stuff.
Gymnastic strength.
Yeah, like lifting weights or cardio too.
Pavel was on Joe Rogan, mentioned this by name, mentioned me by name, the program by name in steady state. And then they were talking about it as applied to weightlifting. And it's up on YouTube. People can look at it. Rogan, Pavel, go through the comments on the YouTube clip. And I was amazed how many weightlifters, just doing basic, squat, deadlift, bench, overhead, how strong they had gotten from doing steady state with their lifting. Some of them got really, really strong. And they were exactly like you said, we're going to keep this a minimum of 10 to 12 weeks. Some of them started with just the bar and ended up doing some monstrous weights.
I just find it fascinating how it's so at odds with progressive overload. You have to lift heavier. You've got to keep going harder and harder. But take it like this. If you do steady state stuff, you can always be perfecting your technique using a stricter tempo. Maybe you're being more explosive on the concentric. If you use the same weight, same progression, same everything, but you're manipulating the intent, your neurological system's going to improve, even if the load is similar.
Notice we want everyone so I broke steady state into, in my mind, stages. So we have overload, load, and underload. So the overload is I have a load. It could be an exercise. It could be a cross. It could be a handstand push-up. It could be a push-up. It doesn't matter. I have an exercise for a certain number of reps that is really hard for me. We like that struggle. We like that struggle. Kind of perks us up. We like the adrenaline. And then we have to stay in that until we go to load, which is the same. It just means the rate of perceived exertion, right, is less. So what used to be really, really hard is now easier for me. And that's where most people mess up, is that once it gets easy, they immediately want to go back and increase load. Or what I want them to consider doing is, you did overload, you've been in load, now you need to stay with it until it's easy. You need to stay with it's easy so that it is just kind of like, I'm bored. So my athletes, they would have Could be Jefferson curl. We should talk about Jefferson curl. But, it could be something, and they would keep coming up. Coach, can I increase? Can I increase? Can I increase? Can I increase? Well, how long you been here? It's been 10 weeks. Almost. Oh, my gosh. They'd come up again, how long has it been? It's been 12 weeks. Okay. Go ahead. Because what we want is, it's like an injury, right? If I have a sprained ankle, I'm going to be down for a certain amount of weeks, and then I'm going to be able to walk around. Okay. But I'm not recovered. My injury is just not so severe anymore that I can't walk. But if I try to jump, I'm going to get re-hurt. So walking, it feels like I'm okay. Structurally, I'm not enough to be athletic. And then what they don't realize is, well, just because I can jump some, it's kind of like if this is a cliff, right? I can come up to the edge as much as I want. I can dance on the edge and come back and I'm fine. But as soon as I go a little bit too far, I fall down the cliff. And there's nothing I can do to get back over the cliff. Once I'm over, I'm over. And so because a lot of our nervous system is functional rather than sensational, we can't feel the weakness, if you will. We can't feel how tenuous it is. That, yeah, I'm performing, but I don't know that, I don't understand that I'm really on the ragged edge, right? That I'm one little twist. One Olympic lifter who was a national champion in the U.S. blew his knee out because he changed Olympic lifting shoes. People are going to go, well, that's crazy. He changed shoe. It's the same. Well, yeah, the shoe was like the final straw on the camel's back, but that injury had been there. It just needed that one last little push. Or Ivankov, world champion for Russia, tore his Achilles walking across the parking lot at the Atlanta Olympics in 96.
That's so often. Elite athletes in the shower, they could do all these skills, coordination, agility on the field, but then they get in the shower, they're tired, they're fatigued, they hurt themselves. Same type of thing.
Because the structural damage was there. It was there. It wasn't that taking a shower is dangerous, right? It was that I was broken and I didn't know it because there wasn't enough recovery. Like the Russian team, they take off the month of August. They just go away.
The general population never has an off season, never takes a break. It's always pedal to the metal.
Exactly.
The other advantage of that
is the way to go.
Steady state training cycle is the mental discipline more than the physical attributes. It's, coach, I want to progress. It's week 6. No, you got to wait till week 12. And just having that discipline to stay consistent, stay patient, be in the process. Because I'll say when I look at the average person who's doing progressive overload, it's not often progressive overload because they're chasing numbers and performance when they can't even do it. Oh, I'm going to go from 8 pull-ups to 12. Your form's gone to trash. You've started going half range of motion. Or you're doing 5 sets instead of 3 sets, but your effort per set isn't what we want.
I think maybe this will help them, is because it sounds like what we're telling them is be really patient, don't increase the load, and you'll stay healthy. But it will also increase performance. A more straightforward example, deadlifts, and the protocol was 2 to 3 sets of 2 to 3 reps. I had an athlete, Heath, little guy, super strong, but little. We'll call him 112 pounds. And I start him off with 135 pounds. They get their 2 or 3 reps in with his 135, go do some more stuff, come back, get another set, boom. He did that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And that we don't increase the reps. Now it's early in his training cycle. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, there were days where he's like, I'm tired. My back's tired today. Skip it. I don't care. Don't do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. At 135 for those reps and 2 sets for 12 weeks. And he's chomping at the bit. Can I do more? Can I do more? But sure, dude. Go ahead. So he goes to put 10s on it. Now he's going to go, he wants to go from 135 to 155, which for someone who hasn't done steady state is a nice jump. I'm going to have a 20-pound jump. And percentage-wise, that's a big percentage of 135. And I laughed at him. I said, well, I won't say what I said. So all the years of being in the military and national team coach, language can be overly colorful at times. So I told you, don't waste my time with those bleep and tens. Put 25s on. And he goes, there's no freaking way I can go from 135 to 185. I said, just shut up and put the 25s on the bar. So he puts the 25s on. He's looking at me, kind of the puppy dog eyes. I'll do it, but you're going to feel really bad when I explode and I die. And I said, yeah, whatever. Just put the damn weight on the bar. So he puts it on and he grabs the bar. Remember, only 135 for 3 months. The 185 just flies off the floor. And he does his reps and his eyes get huge. And he's like, what the? And he goes to grab more weight. He's excited. He's going for 225. I was like, slow your roll, dude. Slow your roll. So, but the 185 was not a problem at all. And so if people will go through and look at those YouTube comments from that clip from Pavel on Rogan, you're going to see it replicated with other people. It goes against everything we've been taught in terms of linear progression, because systemic fatigue, stabilization of the joints. Pavel expresses it a bit as that strength is a skill. Even after all these years, I'm not quite willing to go that far, you know. But what we have learned, I can't quite explain it. We call it a bit of a black box, right? We drop stuff in and stuff comes out. We're really not quite sure what happens inside the black box. We just know if we do this protocol and we wait this long, we're going to get cool stuff out on the other side. So for example, in GST, bodyweight calisthenics, currently right now, we're getting a lot of people who are, they're doing some crazy weights on their weighted dips and on their weighted pull-ups. And it's impressive and it's awesome. But I'm also getting a lot of people writing me, with injury, because they're kind of going fast. Chill, go a little slower. Go slow now to go fast later.
I think that advice is particularly relevant for people who are intermediate towards advanced, that have been in the game for a few years. And it's so uplifting to know that you don't always have to be trying to progress on paper. By doing the same thing, your gains will be actualized later. If anything, you're just mitigating that injury risk, allowing some of the fatigue to settle, your joints and tendons to feel better as well.
Well, the beginner's too weak, really, to hurt themselves. It's the intermediate and the advanced guys who are strong enough to hurt themselves. They can really screw themselves up. Because the eccentrics, I really encourage people to play with them, because the eccentric is a wonderful thing, because connective tissue doesn't have its own capillary system. So that means if we're doing strength work of low rep, we're gradually starving that connective tissue, the ligaments and tendons. We're starving it because it's not getting enough blood flow. But if we start putting in eccentrics, so now instead of a fraction of a second under load during a rep, now I've got 30 seconds of load, 30 seconds of circulation under strain. Kind of goes back to that steady state. If they'll just be work hard, give the body a chance to stabilize, work hard, give the body a chance to stabilize, and then that athletic ability lasts for a long time. I'm going to hurt some feelings here. It's that myofibril work, right, rather than the sarcoplasmic work. So, a bodybuilder, they're getting big. Notice a bodybuilder is puffy unless he's on diuretics or something. But because the nature of their training is always flushing the tissues. And they get a lot of fluid in between the cells, right? Plus the steroids they're taking are retaining fluid. And you'll see guys who they stop taking steroids, and 3 months later, it looks like they never lifted a day in their life. They've been training all these years. They stopped training and they just pissed it all out. They had to work hard to get there, but there's no longevity because it's artificial. You'll hear the body goes, yeah, I got to go get a pump. But an athlete, your structure has adapted. And so if they'll approach their training with more of the steady state cycle in mind, they're going to, once they finish the cycle, they're going to have a big jump in strength. And two, tremendous longevity.
Yeah, and that's
tremendous longevity.
The beauty of bodyweight strength training is how well-rounded you are. You get the strength, the relative strength, which then translates to absolute strength. Doesn't work vice versa. You can't just be doing bench press then expect to translate to planche push-ups. You get the range of motion, you get the body control, it's just, from my research over time, I enjoy all forms of fitness and sports. I can appreciate athletics to the highest level.
I like lifting.
But there's just something about body weight.
I like lifting. We can go into, which exercises I like in that. But consider the difference between how much of your body you use during planche push-ups or a regular push-up for that matter, compared to a bench press. Just scapular mobility alone, where I'm trapped, I can't move, shoulder can't move, lats are trying to contribute, but can't, compared to push-up, core is locked, posterior pelvic tilt, everything's in place, coming down. I mean, it's just a more natural expression of how the body moves.
It seems to be, it's the complementary nature of bent and straight arm exercises from the calisthenics.
Without question. So CrossFit, Greg did a tremendous disservice to people's progress in terms of gymnastic strength because it's complicated. And so what they did is they just called it skill training. A planche is not a skill. A planche requires an extreme degree of physical preparation. A backflip is a skill. A cartwheel is a skill. A giant on high bar is a skill. Sprinting, those are skills. But this other, a muscle up is not a skill. It's an exercise, right? And it needs to be trained as such. But they couldn't quantify it, so they just kind of threw everything into a box and called it, let's do 10 minutes of skill training at the end. CrossFit used to be, before there were affiliates, it used to be the CrossFit website, and they would post the workout of the day. And it was just always random. And it was originally intended to be 1/3 sprinting, 1/3 gymnastics, 1/3 weightlifting. So if you're a strength athlete, the endurance is going to crush you. If you're an endurance athlete, the strength component is going to crush you. So no matter who you are, right, it's going to spank you. And it's wonderful marketing. Greg, what the F? you can't. He had one where they were doing lunges, 400-meter lunges around the track. And I forget how every couple of lunges, an overhead press. And the men had one weight and the women had one weight. I was like, well, that's an awesome workout, but why? Because a lot of CrossFitters were never high-end athletes, right? They weren't necessarily national team athletes. They probably weren't college athletes. They might have done a bit of high school athletics. And now suddenly I get a chance to compete with other people around me, and I could be a stud where I'd never had a chance to be a stud before. And it morphed CrossFit into becoming a lot of conditioning work. And that went fine for a good while until someone, as they should have, wanted to see how to make the system better. The supposition of CrossFit was you don't have to train these specialties in order to be good at these specialties. So Greg would tell people, you're only going to deadlift twice a year and you're going to have a 750-pound deadlift. He told people this. And anyone who's in strength knows, it's nonsense. It's not going to happen. But there are Olympic lifting coaches around who can teach them some mobility specific for Olympic lifting, for snatch. We're going to do hip, we're going to do knee, we're going to do your Achilles, we're going to work on ankle flexion, we're going to do technical work. And so those people stopped doing the posted WODs and started doing real Olympic lifting, the training for it, and they were coming in and crushing the other people. And the CrossFitters didn't realize that CrossFit was now no longer what Greg had said it was, that I can just do these random things and I'll be okay. Suddenly, I have to do a lot of specialist workouts. That's why you see these CrossFitters doing so much training in a day. They're trying to prepare so many different modalities. And they got good enough that they had Olympic lifters, who were qualifying for nationals, for national champ. They weren't winning, but from scratch to making nationals is a big deal.
Despite the criticisms of CrossFit, it opened people's eyes to the world of Olympic lifting, to the world of gymnastic strength. Because for myself, CrossFit was getting popular around that 2010 period. And I saw people doing ring muscle ups. I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I dived deeper into the specific world of gymnastic strength because I didn't want to do muscle ups, then also do a snatch and then box jumps, each to their own. But if you want to specialize, you've got to dedicate yourself to it.
And I just had a debate 2 days ago with a CrossFitter. I don't understand the flaw in their reasoning that they'll be so meticulous in their Olympic lifting preparation and then completely unstructured in terms of their gymnastics preparation. Now, I'm just going to get up and swing around and no shoulder prep, no joint prep, no, I'm not going to try to make my handstand better.
No progressions prior to the full movement.
No progressions. They're still doing kipping headstand push-ups against a wall. But you are so meticulous in your lifting. I don't understand why you obviously have already learned to focus. You understand progression. You understand self-discipline. Why can't you take that same lens and focus it over here as well? I don't believe that there are niches in life, if you will. I don't believe that this part of my life is my working out. This part of my life is my family. This part of my life are my hobbies. These are my friends. This is my professional life. No, I don't believe in that at all. I don't believe that there's all these separate skill sets. I didn't start being successful in life until I realized there aren't niches, there's just life. And if I approach one thing well, I have the potential to approach everything well. Have to remind myself all the time still, all the people, the flip side applies also. If I'm doing one thing badly, haphazardly, this may start bleeding over into other areas that I don't want that to happen. So, to me, it's one life. Now, you pick your battles. I'm not telling people to, be obsessive about everything you do, but pick what's most important to you and do it well.
But if you approach gymnastic strength with that mindset, what's going to happen?
You remember when I first released Jefferson Curl, they were all losing their mind. They were
a game changer, especially the way that you were teaching it looked even more aggressive. So you'd have a weight held underneath a bench and you'd extend up into it.
That was the squat pikes. That was the squat pikes. Yeah. Two things to fix hamstring is going to be, people don't like it because it's not sexy. Standing leg kicks is probably the number one thing to improve hamstring flexibility.
It's interesting because you're getting some, it's like inhibition from the contraction of the quads as well to relax the hamstrings.
I don't know why. Now the Jefferson Curl works, but it's slow process. But if you take that weighted squat on those squat pikes on the bench, start from the squat, and then just don't be in a hurry. Just build that pike from the squat. So notice it's immediately into the hamstring, especially that upper hamstring where it goes in the glute, right? Where it's a bit sensitive. So that's what the Nordic curls are good for, going to that hamstring insertion. There's a guy, he makes his living going around to train NFL, the American football teams, how to not get hamstring pulled. He's a medical doctor. They think he's a genius. All he's doing is Nordic curls.
Yeah, it's very sport specific because those injuries are happening at length and the Nordic replicates the demands, the eccentric lengthening.
Right where that sprint goes into the glute, right? That nothing else quite gets it. I used to love and have, I'm getting ready to get rid of it, a Nautilus pullover. The biggest problem was that the bent elbow took the long head of the tricep out, which led to an imbalance in the back of my shoulder. So I'm happy as a bug in a rug doing. I'm doing my 170. Life is good. It feels easy. Got up to,
but there's something missing.
And it's like, son of a bitch. I should have been doing this with straight arms. But again, it was that I was using a position that allowed maximum leverage. But in order to get that maximum leverage, I had to compromise on the shoulder extension.
In gymnastics, we're doing all the straight arm pullovers, like front lever pulls, 360 pulls, whatever, straight arms. Is there merit in replicating it exactly, like with a on a cable machine, having your arm straight, doing that versus the bent arm pullover?
I think the better one, because I can't quite feel scapular elevation with that. So I find if I'm supine, if I lay on my back on the ground, and it's going to drop your weights to nothing. Right? It's going to drop the weights to nothing. So I literally went. Now, of course, I have an injury right now. I'm coming through, but from 170 pounds to 5 or 10, because it was
going from bent arm to straight
arm to straight, and then doing the extension, and then lowering back. Now, granted, I'm using a really slow eccentric followed by an isometric pause, right? But it's just crawling through. You can feel it all through the scaps, through the traps. You can feel it through that insertion of the long head of the tricep, and it's baby weights. It's baby weights. But I come out of there going, wow, I just got beat up. What the heck is this?
Yeah.
And
it's more relevant to what we're doing with, say, handstands, replicates the position, bottom of a pull-up.
Well, I think it's more relevant to that, but I think what it's also doing, because it's the disadvantaged position, it's allowing us to dig into the weak links of the structure. There's always going to be the weak link in the chain that breaks. So when my shoulder got hurt, it wasn't the prime movers that got injured, right? My lats were huge from it. My lats were huge. It was that insertion in the back of the shoulder, and I was getting biceps tendonitis. Now, why would I get biceps tendonitis from doing body weight overhead work? That long head of the bicep was just getting tendonitis because it wasn't getting enough blood flow, and it wasn't getting enough direct work to stay healthy. I had cut it out of the circuit, if you will. And so it was atrophying, and it was getting weaker, and the stronger I was getting here, because I'm happy, right? Oh, finally, I'm back to body weight. I'm on my way to body weight and a half. Life is good, yes. And that bicep tendon's going, no, we're not happy here. But all I had to do was put some very gentle straight arm work in, and that bicep tendon said, thank you, I love you. Immediately, 70% reduction in pain, range of motion.
You wouldn't have got that if you kept doing your compounds through pulling, pushing, horizontal, vertical. You wouldn't have got it.
Well, and the exciting thing to me, because I was sitting there, I'm 61 now, and before, the straight arm work was always characterized as gymnastics specific, not necessarily an athletic benefit or a physical therapy benefit, health and longevity. But now that straight arm work scale. Now, if you jump right into an iron cross, you're screwed, right? But if we regress it properly as far down as it needs to go, now that makes the straight arm work tremendously valuable for supporting that other maximal strength work. It's no longer gymnastics specific. This is just athletics.
No. And it highlights the importance of doing all of those straight arm basics, your skin the cats, German hangs, your back levers, your handstands.
There's a guy who just won Olympic gold in swimming. We've had several swimmers. This isn't mine, but his work in the 50-meter free, it was all GST. It's that straight arm work, this is what happens in athletics. I'm throwing, catching, I'm going through full extension. That it never gets trained in traditional conditioning because it's all bent arm work.
No. We've got to say again that straight arm is really just a vessel for working the scapula.
Yes.
It challenges the scapula in such a unique way because when you bend the arms, it involves the scapula, but it's not as focused to that region of elevation, depression, protraction, retraction.
That's an excellent point, because as I was doing those supine pullovers with the straight bar, I could feel the scapula just gliding along the rib cage. You could feel it very clearly, which you try to do it. If I'm doing just shrugs for warming up on stuff, you're doing your hanging shrugs and that kind of, you can feel it pull down, but nothing near the free full motion of that supine pullover. Not even close. It's like, oh, okay, this is a keeper. Because it's got to be results based. If it doesn't work, demonstrably improve, it's got to go.
And that's where it has that transfer, building your straight arm scapular strength. it's no surprise why your bent arm strength skyrockets as a byproduct of that.
And to my mind, why would I bullshit you? It makes no sense. I'm simply telling you training. It was all that plyometric work. I started off with 250 on dead and never touched. So I went to double body weight. I was just medium strong as a gymnast.
I'm not surprised to hear, Coach, that the plyometric base serves you so well for transfer to weightlifting performance. Because you think about it, you're doing vertical jumps, you're doing standing broad jumps horizontally. When you break down a deadlift, it's a vertical jump in essence in how the hips, knees, triple extension happens. You're doing that in plyometrics with your body weight.
Deadlift is just power. It's more the musculature, right? They're going to say connective tissue, but connective tissue's job is to rebound force. The real world, if we're not in the civilized world, if we're out having to survive, doing our thing, climbing, falling, running, getting attacked, falling down, getting thrown, the world is a ballistic environment. And we have to absorb and we have to produce ballistic force. There's not a woolly mammoth, right, who's going to stand still and let me butcher them.
Yeah, it's safe to say in that setting, you're not doing things slow, paused, and controlled. You're aggressive, plyometric. And same thing goes when you would have had gymnasts putting up these double bodyweight deadlifts without even doing them. They would, I imagine, approach the bar, grip and rip as explosively as they can.
We quit Olympic lifting for that reason. We had because Olympic lifting was offered as the be all end all, right? You're going to be fast, you're going to be mobile, you're going to be explosive, you're going to be strong. It's not the case. My guy, we spent a long time, and I spent a lot of staff. We worked with Russian great coaches, the great Chinese coaches. We spent a number of years on it and then walked away going, it's too little return for investment. It doesn't make any sense. Because they take my guys, I bring a coach in, and they're jerking body weight immediately. What's the point of this? And then I have to do specialized mobility for an overhead squat that I'm never going to use
rack position
except for overhead squat. I'm never going to use a rack position except for the rack. So I was like, they're already pulling double and triple body weight. So I don't think this is the solution. But at the end of the day, I was like, nah, there's more effective choices.
So would you say the weightlifting compounds and isolations would have to play more of a role in a gymnastic strength program?
A supplemental, because I had all that strength from not lifting. I didn't have to lift to be strong. Thinking then was, you do gymnastics to get strong in gymnastics. And the guys who were natural mesomorphs, right, they got built. But the guys who were thinner weren't getting enough hypertrophy work to build muscle.
Yeah. Because there's something to be said about the efficiency, calculatedness, and simplicity of lifting weights to build muscle. You can, of course, do this with bodyweight exercises, but as a complement,
you need those sets, you need those reps. One of the reasons that Simone Biles is so good is she's just so strong. We're at national championships. We're in the training gym. Simone hasn't done a thing yet, but she goes walking by, and she's just this little pocket rocket. I don't know, 4'6", 4'8", something. Shoulders like this, just ripped abs, just ripped. And I told Alan, I said, if you marry that girl,
the genetics, oh my God,
I will come out of retirement to train your kids. I will. And he just laughed, and we didn't know what Simone was going to go on and do. But I was just like, oh my God. But she's just because her technique when she tumbles is perfect. And so you'll see people who say, well, that's because of all her training. Yes and no. Her structure's strong enough because she's completely extended coming into that back handspring. Think about just doing a long hollow position. She's doing it under 14 times body weight and holding that while rebounding and snapping.
Yeah, it's the combination of her genetically blessed structure of her joints, the ratios of her different limbs in the upper and lower body, her muscle mass to support that, and combining that with the physical preparation,
Wonderful
the dedication,
coaching.
the mindset.
Amy was a wonderful coach, and it was very calm, very methodical. I was her first coach up through Rio, Amy, and did wonderful.
It's one thing to do high performance in training. It's another thing to do it in competition. How do you instill that focus and just composure? Is it innate? Is it trained?
Everything is math. You need this. Everything's broken into training cycles. We're going to do these skills at this age for this 4-year block. This next 4-year block, we're going to do this. This 4-year block, we're going to do this. We need this many reps. For example, if it's a world-class skill, and I verified this myself, that it takes 1,000 good repetitions to master a high-level skill. Not 1,000 repetitions, 1,000 good repetitions. So
practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice does.
Perfect practice does. I wanted to test this. So my deal with Robbie was all our workouts, it was summer, our entire workout is going to be based around this one skill. So I forget if it was a 3 or a 4-hour workout. And we had to make 10 good repetitions of this skill a day. And we're going to work our way up to 1,000. So 5 days a week training, 50 a week, 200 a month, should be 5 months. Later, jump to the end of the story, guys who went to the world championships for the US saw Robbie's pommel horse. Later, we were just like, that is the finest pommel routine I've ever seen in my life from a 10-year-old. They were just freaking out. And what we found was that if he could get them all done in 10 minutes, then we'd go on with our regular workout. If it took 4 hours to get the 10, then it took 4 hours, joints allowing it, if his wrist could take that much. Never really took, but we never counted how many missed. Now, this also doesn't work unless someone, and we'll come around how we develop it, someone has to have, so I call it world-class talent married to a blue-collar work ethic. A blue-collar guy,
awesome.
He's just going to get in, he's going to grind, right? He's going to grind. He's not trying to be fancy or complex or refined. He's just going to gut it out. And so Robbie, he would take a turn on horse, and, when you miss on horse, imagine someone hitting your shins with a broomstick. So you're swinging, and you're not just getting hit this way, it's notching. And it stings. It stings. And so you jump down, you go, okay, well, I did it the one, I'm good. But now you're going up again, and it happens again. And it happens again. Well, my older athletes would look at Robbie and go, or he'd go sometimes and he would mess up on the first one, and he would hit himself in the groin. And luckily he's 10, so it's not as painful, but it still hurts, even though he's down on the ground, and then he'd get up and he'd be crying, chalking up to do his next turn. And my older athletes who were very good at the time, but they weren't Robbie's dedication, are like, what? I don't understand, coach. And I said, well, how do you beat someone like Robbie? And I said, I'll save you the hassle, gentlemen. You can't. An athlete like Robbie needs someone like me to calm him down. That's enough, dude. You've done enough. Where the other athletes, you're kicking them in the butt. Work harder, work harder. Yeah. Robbie was
what I see is you can't fake it.
Can't fake it.
Competence builds confidence. And then when you're out there, when the performance comes, when others that haven't done the work, haven't done the thousands and thousands of perfect reps, of course they're going to get anxious because they don't have that self-belief. Whereas if you've done the work, then you're more inclined to fall into that automatic process of success.
Nice way to say it, to just kind of quantify it. Repetition builds consistency. Consistency builds confidence. Confidence is what allows high-level performance. And so we get people, they haven't done the repetitions, the good repetitions, so they haven't developed the consistency, so they're not confident, so they can't go out and achieve a world-class performance unless they're lucky, and it happens sometimes. It happens. You can roll the dice, and you can win sometimes, but you can't win every time. Because what we want, when they go out on the competition floor, I have no interest in them doing what they're capable of at 100%. I want them to be so over-prepared and so much stronger and so much technically advanced that their routines are built, they can win with only 70% of their skill set. I can't hit 100% every day, but I can hit 70% day in and day out. Once in a while I have a miss, but I can be clockwork. I can be clockwork at 70, but I can't do my best 100% day in, day out. Can't be done.
That's crazy how hard you have to work to get to that level, though, because just getting to that 70% is high performance, but going above and beyond in training must just be such dedication.
So I haven't looked at them in forever, but in here, in this iPad, I'll be able to pull up training days, because I'm not interested in the day, I'm interested in the week overall. And I'm interested in how that week goes into the month. Because you have good days, you have bad days. You can't get too bent about the day, but you can get bent about a week. So what the Russians, they had these same records. So they went back and they looked at Olga, and she had a 98% hit rate. 98%. Well,
That's unbelievable.
How could she go to the Olympics and fall apart? So they look at it, and they finally figure out it was the mental preparation. So she was treated as a princess. She got to warm up as much as she wanted to warm up. When it was time for an evaluation routine, the judges waited on Olga. That's not how the Olympics are. It's not how world championships are. They don't give a shit about you as an athlete. They don't give a shit. You're going to warm up in the back in a separate gym. And at the time, they weren't allowing one touches. Now they allow one touches because people were getting seriously hurt, right? But before you weren't even allowed to touch the equipment. So you were in another gym, and then you walked down a hallway, which more often than not was just concrete, until they call your turn. And you go in cold, and you do a routine. And you've got after they tell you it's your turn, you got 30 seconds to be on the equipment. Training for a competitive athlete has to be mentally and physically much harder than competition. Competition needs to be an easy day. It's got to be an easy day. So you play games with them constantly. Today we're going to do 2 routines in a row, 1 minute in between. Or get ready for a routine. Walk away and leave them standing there for 10 minutes.
It's that comfort of unfamiliarity or novelty of timing, circumstances.
Just, stress has to become the norm. Not in a mean way, not in a harsh way, not in a degrading way, but when you're competing at that level, it's like wearing a concrete vest that's just squeezing you in, and you have trouble breathing.
It's that whole eustress versus distress.
Yes.
So the athletes that were prepared for novelty, different circumstances, they still got anxious. They 100%. Still felt the cortisol and the stress, but it was eustress. It was serving them. They understood what it was for.
It's home.
Whereas the athletes that didn't, distress, anxiety.
Stress is a good thing. I can't handle it. Right? Stress makes you focus. Fresh gives that little spike of adrenaline. Stress makes you sharp. Right? Stress is a wonderful thing, used appropriately. Stress in too much dosage, right, destroys the organism physically and mentally. So we're teaching them methodically to thrive in a stressful environment. And the psychology of women in competition is very different than the psychology of men. They need even more stress than a man needs. We can go over why if you like, but it's a very different
prep. Why is that?
So if you go to compete or I go to compete and we're men, we're focused on one thing. We're going to win. We literally don't give a shit about anything else or anyone else. We're 100% focused. It's hardwired into us as men, right? We're there to get shit done. That is not the psychology of women. She goes out to compete. She wants to win, but there's a lot of things in front of that emotionally for a woman. She's worried about the people around her. Are they going to do well? As guys, we don't give a shit if our competition's going to do well. I hope the son of a bitch screws up, right? They're not like that. I hope everyone does well. At the same time, remember, women are catty, so they're worried about, are they going to like me? Does everyone like me here? The meet hasn't even started. They're worrying about someone else. They're worrying about, does everyone like me? Then they're worried about, am I going to let my coach down? Am I going to let my teammates down? Am I going to let the parents down? They have all
Throw social media in the mix, the public perception, the sponsors.
because women are supposed in a relationship are nurturing. So all these things that make competition so much harder for them in the real world environment are tremendously valuable. But when they're going out to compete, they have all these other emotional circuits that we as men don't have. I've watched women in training doing their beam routine, which is 4 inches wide, solid as a rock, like they were on a 3-foot wide sidewalk. Just not a twitch, not a quiver, like, holy shit, are you kidding me? And then the meet will start, and it'll look like they'd never been on beam in their entire life. Even the girls themselves know. When I started training the girls, a girl started crying during Hungarian. Well, if a guy cries, he's hurt, right? If he's crying a lot, there's a bone sticking out of his leg somewhere. I'm like, well, I got to stop.
Yeah.
And the other girls are like, oh, just ignore her. She does that. Girls do that. I'm like,
Things would be different in the landscape of modern gymnastics where teams would have access to sports psychologists, and I'm sure that they would be teaching men these tactics as well as women about how to stay focused and maybe tolerate against their natural programming.
Simone struggled a lot until Amy took her to a sports psychologist. If you have a psychologist who really understands competition, and all around the perimeter of the gym were these 3x5 signs of yes. Yes, there's yeses everywhere. Yes, you can. Yes, it'll be okay. Yes, it'll be great. Kumbaya. And
Everyone's a winner.
everyone's a winner. And then she gets to the meet, and there is no yes. It's just that crushing pressure we talked about because they hadn't prepared her for it, right? Could she have made team? I don't think she would have, but she would have definitely been better than ninth. It'd have been very close, but not quite herself because of just all this silly fairy tale nonsense of it'll be okay. No, it's not going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. It's going to be brutal. I'm sorry it's brutal, but this is the price of admission. When they're training with me, we don't do it right next turn. We do it right this turn. Well, however close you can come to it this turn. If that takes 1 turn, 7 turns, 10 turns, it doesn't matter, right? Because I want you zoned in. I want you zoned in. Tomorrow doesn't matter. Next turn doesn't matter. This turn matters. I do have issues with the new climate today where everything is lovely and rainbows and unicorns.
Idea of everyone is getting a participation
Everyone's
award,
a winner.
everyone gets a medal.
Yeah, I don't believe in
really-
those.
It really instills a lack of desire to progress to your full potential.
Well, if I can win and it took no effort, and the winner who worked twice as hard as me got exactly what I got, well, I'd be kind of stupid to work as hard as him when I got what he got anyway and I didn't do anything. But it's not real.
Yeah, but it
And
works in all aspects of life because
Yes.
you wouldn't look at social friendships as a competitive thing. But if you're not putting in effort into a friendship
Yeah.
and someone else is putting in more, they're going to want to hang out with that person. Then you get into the business world. The one that learns more, applies, will earn more money and go up in that domain. So as I can see where we're coming from with participation to create this
I think it's a
somewhat
terrible
of a
thing.
healthier environment, but
It's not
it doesn't,
healthier, it's
it
fake.
doesn't work in practice.
Yeah, make them,
It doesn't work in practice.
let them fail. We give medals out to third place. And I think they're really depriving these kids, where let them fail. I want to be a great athlete. Fail, fail, fail. And then I've worked my ass off and I suck as an athlete. Awesome. Okay, now we know you're not going to be an athlete. What are you good at? Maybe it's literature, maybe it's academics, maybe I'm a good artist, maybe a musician. It doesn't matter. But I have to go and fail in all these areas till I find where my talents are. Because that's why you do body weight, right? Your phenotype, everything allows you to have success in this area. You didn't pursue sumo wrestling, right? You're not built for it. Why it wouldn't make any sense, right? Or someone who's 6'6". The easy win is, now I've had great guys at 6'6" in GST, but the smart money is go be a basketball player, right? Height is at a premium. In the United States, 10%, think about this, 10% of the people who are 7 feet tall in the United States are in the NBA.
It's this combining your passion with what you're actually genetically predisposed to having success at. That's where you get harmony of fulfillment and material success.
There was a German coach who went down to your neck of the woods. And one of the East German rowing coaches moved to Australia, and he runs a nationwide tryout. Doesn't care if the girls, he teaches women. He doesn't care if the women have ever rowed before. All he's testing for is VO2 max. Chinese are big on this too. He's checking limb lengths. How he wants a particular length of thigh and a particular length of upper arm and a particular torso. He wants everything in a very particular way. Well, he picked women who were genetically suited to be rowers. He liked their attitude. He's a world-class coach. 3 years later, they were world champions.
Because if you've got the base of those genetics, you've got the attributes that are suited to the sport, VO2 max, wattage and power, you can learn the mechanical skill afterwards.
And you'll learn it so much faster.
If you've got perfect mechanical skill, but you don't have the raw horsepower, you won't be able to compete.
And that's what I think this soft approach in sports and academics is. It's not allowing the kids to fail, so they don't have an opportunity to find out what they're good at. I have noticed something about people who are destined for success. Someone will see, I've noticed there's basically 2 ways for someone who's on the outside to look at someone who's successful. That's awesome. I want to learn how to do this. Please teach me. There wasn't a jealousy component. I looked at it as, thank God they know how to do it. They can teach me. My mentors who taught me about business. It wasn't about, well, no, you're not. But the knee-jerk reaction for far too many people is the denial, the belittling, the jealousy. Well, they don't deserve it. They had this, they had that. It should have been me. Instead of, how do I do it? I'm bright. I'm capable. I just don't know how.
Coach, that was really well said, how you interlaced the training with the carryover to life. And it's something that I'm really glad that I picked up at a young age, working out at 17, being a shy, introverted kid, learning that, if I can improve in one domain, you can translate that to other things. So then starting to do personal training, getting comfortable talking one-on-one to a variety of different people, then translating that onto a camera, speaking at first to 100 people, then eventually thousands, 10,000, 100,000, and then just over time, just iterative, small progress. It's not as if you're going to wake up one day, be big, strong, same thing for whatever you're trying to improve in life. And then, I just pinch myself at what I've been able to progress towards in terms of like doing workshops in front of 50 people and talking. So not saying this to toot my own horn, more just to give everyone listening that.
Yeah, exactly. If it's real, it's not that it's tooting horn. That's that constant process of refinement. As we've been here, okay, what's next? It's the steady state. I've done this for 12 weeks. What's next? My business has been at this point for a while. What's next? My physique has been here for a while. What's next? My skill's been here for a while.
It's all a work in process. Behalf of the calisthenics and gymnastics community, Coach, we appreciate what you did for the culture, bringing out the forums and the gymnastics bodies resources. Where can people follow your work now? Gymnasticbodies.com.
Basically, we have all of our body weight stuff, and I think it's time to over the next year or so, I'll start making available for our members the plyometric work, the movement work, the advanced ring strength work.
Thanks again for your time, Coach.
My pleasure, Daniel.